Good morning, all. Good morning to everybody. It is Tuesday morning, Tuesday, December 15th, halfway through the month. Wow. Which also means we're more than halfway through the Gospel of Luke. We did start on December 1st, and we are going to finish on December 24th because there are 24 chapters in the Gospel of Luke, Luke's biography of Jesus. I'm Brian. I'm the pastor at Christ United Methodist Church here in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, and I'm so glad that you're joining me on this journey through Advent, through most of Advent. We missed the first couple days, perhaps, but this journey through Luke in particular, as we make our way through. Today is day 15 of it. And if you're just joining us for the first time, that's okay. You can always pop in or out of Luke or any of the Gospels, and I'm sure that there'll be something here for you. However, I also encourage you to go back through our videos either here on Facebook, on our YouTube channel, which is also UMC Christ, or by going to our website, umcchrist.org. In there, you'll find you'll in either of those places, any of those places, you'll find all the videos there and ready to go. If you go to our YouTube channel and you subscribe to the channel, which of course doesn't cost anything to subscribe to a YouTube channel. I think you can even set up that you get notifications when we load a video there. But you'll see everything there, including our worship experiences. Same thing for UMC Christ. They're nice and together. Um, and here, if you click on videos, if you click and go to our videos selection, you'll see all the videos there. Any of those things will help you get caught up on Luke, or if you just decide, you know what, I'm going to hold off and start Luke January 1st or something like that, the videos are there, and you can watch them anytime you want, because anytime's a good time to read the Gospels. It's just we chose to do this one in December. Um, and there's so much other stuff also on our website, and you can read more about us there, or here and follow along. And if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to like this page and follow us. Excuse me. And you can set it up to receive notifications whenever we go live, as well as seeing our other posts. We do have some stuff coming up. Of course, Sunday's worship experience at 10:45 will be live streamed right here on Facebook, and then afterwards loaded up on YouTube and the website. We are only doing online worship at this time for at least a couple more weeks. Then we have to look at that. The church needs to look at that and decide where we're going based on the numbers of COVID in our community and stuff like that, which fortunately, at least the last couple days, look like they're trending downwards. So good work, everyone. Good work, everyone. Appreciate that. Um, Monday evening, 7 o'clock, we'll be going live with the Blue Christmas worship experience. That'll be coming from my house. I'll just be in my basement, probably using a cell phone to record it, to stream it, I should say. But join me, Blue Christmas, if you have anything you wanted to grieve over. So much to grieve over this year: loss of life, loss of income, loss of employment, loss of energy, and all that kind of stuff. So we've got that going on Monday evening. And of course, on the 24th, we will actually have two things taking place. At 4:30 will be the family Christmas worship experience, children's family Christmas experience, which that won't be live. It will be pre-recorded, but it will be uploaded and ready to view at 4:30. So anytime after 4:30, you'd be able to watch that with your family. And then at 9:30 will be a live streamed worship experience. Now, for any of those worship experiences, Sunday, Mondays, or on Wednesday, or excuse me, Thursday, the Christmas Eve, um, do what you need to do what you can do to help make your space a sacred space, to help you focus in on what's taking place, what we're doing. Bibles are always good to have, and candles, especially for this theme that we've got going on with light. battling the darkness. So candles are great, especially if you have them set up like an Advent wreath, which would be four and one, total of five candles, maybe all the same, maybe one different than the others. As we go ahead and be lighting those up. Anyway, that's not why we're here. Those are just some bonus announcements, bonus thoughts for you this morning. But now we're going to get into to why we're here. We're going to read chapter 15 of Luke. Now, you're probably, excuse me, many people are going to be familiar with these stories, especially the third one. Luke gives three stories in this chapter, three parables of Jesus, one right after another, um, sharing some stuff, and some differences between them. So we're going to talk about them. They might be familiar for you, but see if you can listen to them or read them, because if you're reading along, that's great. See if you can try to do that for the first time, especially with the third story, which is very well known. Very well known. Okay. So all the tax collectors and sinners were gathering around Jesus to listen to him. The Pharisees and legal experts were grumbling, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Pause. Notice the difference right off the bat, the dichotomy the paradox that Luke sets up here with this story, that the tax collectors and sinners are listening to Jesus. Okay, the ones that are supposed to be bad people in the religious leaders' eyes are the ones that are listening to Jesus. But the Pharisees and the legal experts who should be listening to Jesus, the true word of God, are the ones that are grumbling about what's going on. So, who are these parables for? Right? Who are these parables for? So, continuing, verse 3, this is Jesus told them this parable. Suppose someone among you had 100 sheep and lost one of them. Wouldn't he leave the other 99 in the pasture and search for the lost one until he finds it? Pause. Uh, Although it sounds rhetorical to us, perhaps because we know the story, and yeah, sure, he's going to go after the one. But that's not how they would have heard this story, because first off, nobody has 100 sheep. Okay, nobody in first century Judea, these people that he's talking with, none of them are going to have a flock with 100 sheep in it. 10, 12 sheep, maybe, into the 20 range or something like that. That's it. Nobody's got 100 sheep. Nobody has 100 sheep. That would be the sign of a very, very wealthy person. And so if somebody had 100 sheep, they wouldn't care about losing one, is how these folks would understand it. So Jesus flips that on the end. Continuing, and when he finds it, he is thrilled and places it on his shoulders. When he arrives home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, "Celebrate with me, because I found my lost sheep." In the same way, I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who changes both heart and life than over 99 religious people who have no need to change their hearts and lives. Pause. Uh, he talks about friends and neighbors. The Pharisees, the religious leaders that were there, should have uh, most seen themselves as the neighbors, the friends and neighbors of the person who lost it. That's the point of the story, and they should have gotten it. They should have gotten it. Continuing the second parable. Or what woman, if she owns 10 silver coins and loses one of them, won't light a lamp and sweep the house, searching her home carefully until she finds it? Pause. Luke has an amazing and progressive view of women. He puts women at the front of his stories so much more often than anybody else would. Uh, Stories in the first century, even just short ones, brief ones, would not have a woman as the main character. Luke does. Luke does. Luke's gospel does. He places a very high importance on women. Um, Too bad we don't get that message. Still today, we see women struggling, being looked down upon, or their deeds not being accepted, and them not being accepted. So, of what woman, if she owns 10 silver coins and loses one of them, won't light a lamp and sweep the house, searching her home carefully until she finds it? This we can see, and the people would accept. Yeah, they definitely would. They definitely would, because you're not losing 1 out of 100. You're losing 1 out of 10. Losing 1 out of 10, and of course we don't know the full story. It's been supposed that that's like all she has, which sounds reasonable. And so, of course, she's going to go looking for 1/10 of her income, 1/10 of her savings, 1/10 of her estate, because that's what she lost with one coin. It's also been supposed that that's her dowry. That 10 silver coins were her dowry, and if she lost one of them, it would affect whether or not she would be able to get married. We don't know that. That's just what some people say. Okay, where are we at? Yeah, sorry. Verse 9. When she finds it, she calls together her friends and neighbors. Same thing, right? Friends and neighbors, Pharisees and legal experts, she themselves, saying, "Celebrate with me, because I found my lost coin." In the same way, I tell you, joy breaks out in the presence of God's angels over one sinner who changes both heart and life. Pause. So you can see the similarities, right? Something's lost, they search for it, they found it, or they find it, it's found, and there's a celebration over the whole thing. So these two stories, these two parables have a large number of parallels. Uh, Something's lost, they search for it, they find it, they celebrate with friends and neighbors, with friends and neighbors. So now we're going to turn to the third story here in Luke chapter 15, and this is the longest of the three, and this takes up the rest of the chapter. Again, very well known story, often referred to, excuse me, as the prodigal son. That's not originally what it was entitled. It's not originally what it was entitled. Old traditions just call it the story of the prodigal, or the parable of the prodigal, or the parable of the lost son. That title is probably the best one to use because it's in keeping with the other two parables. We have the parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, the parable of the lost son. Okay? Excuse me. Should have had a glass of water handy. Um, the reason I say that, I have two different reasons to say that. One, because it's in keeping with the other two stories. You have lost sheep, lost coin, lost son. The other thing is the meaning of prodigal. For a long time, I always thought prodigal meant just like a bad person, a wayward son, and that's not exactly what prodigal means. Prodigal really means like spendthrift or extravagant. Extravagant. So the son, the younger son, was prodigal in the fact that he lived an extravagant lifestyle. That's key. We're going to come to that too. Um, but also the father is prodigal in his extravagant love for his son. Okay, actually for both of his sons. I guess I should have said spoiler alert because we didn't get to that part of the story yet, but that's all right. But that's my reasoning for saying we should just call it the story of the parable of the lost son. And here it is. Verse 11. Jesus said, "A certain man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the inheritance.'" Pause. We're going to pause right off the bat. I know, I only read a verse, PB. You only read a verse and a half. I only read a verse and a half. I know, but here's what's taken place. First of all, the father's not dead yet. Okay, and the son wants his inheritance, wants his money. So basically, what he's saying when he asks his dad for his inheritance, basically what he's saying is, "I wish you were dead. I wish you were dead." Money was far more important to him than his father was. Okay, so there's right off the bat, we've got greed going on here. You know, something you need to know too about inheritance, since he's the younger son, they only mention two, they says he had two sons. The way the inheritance, the estate would have been shared once the man died, the older son would have gotten two shares, and the younger son would have gotten one share. So 1/3 of the estate is what this young man would be entitled to. I'm going to use round numbers because they're easier for me to figure out and calculate and understand. But for instance, if the man's estate was worth 1.5 million dollars, $1.5 million, divide that, you would end up dividing that by three, two for the older son, one for the younger son, and you get $500,000. So the younger son would get $500,000 and the older son would get $1 million. So this younger son wants his share. He's telling his dad, I wish you were dead. I just want my money. Then the father divided his estate between them. Soon afterward, the son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. There, he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. What is extravagant living? Fancy clothes, really good food, exotic food, more vacations. The older son later says he spent his money on prostitutes. It doesn't say that here. Right now it says extravagant living. Extravagant living. When he had used up his resources, a severe food shortage arose in that country, and he began to be in need. He hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. Pause. Nothing worse than a job feeding pigs for a Jewish person. And pigs are unclean animals, non kosher animals. And this guy is feeding pigs. Continue. He longed to eat his fill from what the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have more than enough food, but I'm starving to death? I will get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Take me on as one of your hired hands. So he got up and went to his father. Okay, so pause, pause. He came to his senses. He realized who his father was. He realized and understood the relationship that his father wanted with him and that he did have with his father and that he had thrown away. He said, I'm not worthy of being your son. I'm only worthy of being one of his hired hands. He just wants a job. He doesn't want back in the family, doesn't think he deserves that, but maybe I can get a job. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. Pause. I know I just paused. It's only half a verse, for crying out loud. While he was still a long way off, the father saw him. His father saw him. Wasn't the first time the father was looking at the horizon. The father in this story must have been going out there looking for his lost son. He was searching for his lost son every day. Continue. His father ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then his son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Pause. He practiced that line, right? He practiced that line. It's like word for word what he just said, I'm going to say to my dad, I'm going to say to him, right? But his father cuts him off. His father cuts him off and says, But the father said to his servants, Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his fingers and sandals on his feet. Pause. I know, again, I only read like a verse and a half, but so what? There's a lot here. The father gives him a robe, a ring, and shoes. He's not bringing him back as a servant. He's not bringing him back as a hired hand. He's bringing him back as a son. He's bringing him back as part of the family. The robe would be indicative of that. The ring is like a signet ring. He could use it to take loans. He could use it to do any kind of business in the family name. And he put shoes on his feet because servants didn't have shoes. He gave him shoes. He brought him back into the family. That which was lost has been found. Continuing. Fetch the fattened calf and slaughter it. We must celebrate with feasting because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Pause. Do you see the parallels now between the other two stories, even though this one sounds like it's completely different? Something was lost. They searched for it. They found it. They celebrated. Continuing now, his older son was in the field. Coming in from the field, he approached the house and heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what was going on. The servant replied, "Your brother has arrived, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf because he received his son back safe and sound." Then the older son was furious and didn't want to enter in, but his father came out and begged him. He answered his father, "Look, I've served you all these years and I never disobeyed your instruction. Yet you've never given me as much as a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. When this son of yours returned after gobbling up your estate on prostitutes, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him." Then his father said, "Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." End chapter, but not end of our discussion. The older son misunderstands some things. Perhaps the older son uh, is used to symbolize the Pharisees and the legal scholars. That's a possibility. But he misunderstands some things. He misunderstands his relationship with his father. He thinks of himself as a servant to his father. Notice the words. Notice the words he used. "I've served you all these years. I've served you all these years and never disobeyed your instructions." In other words, I've been a good servant to you. Okay? And then he says, "This son of yours." But the father clears things up. The father clears things up. The father's pointing out to him, "You got it wrong." What's the first word he uses there? He says, "Son." You might think of yourself as a servant, but you are my son. And this brother of yours. He's not just my son, he's your brother. He was lost and has been found. Well, friends, lots to think about there. I think, I believe. You know that the story of the parable of the lost son. We can look at ourselves in so many different places in that story, and at different times in our lives, we can be different characters of that story. I know sometimes we might touch ourselves most closely as being the younger son, the wayward son, the lost son. Other times, when we're honest about it, we can see ourselves as the older son, griping and moaning because of uh, perceived injustice when someone comes back to the fold. Sometimes I think we're called to be the father, to be the one offering an amazing amount of love, to the one being prodigal with love and forgiveness, and to celebrate. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me. I do hope that this has been helpful, meaningful to you, worthwhile of your time, and I pray you have a wonderful day. Bye, and I will see you tomorrow.